Okay, we'll see if this worked. There it is. Looks like I'm live. I don't see my face, but I see something. I see it's live, 10 seconds, but I don't see my face. We'll try this. There we go. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Excellent connection, everything. Looks like it's working on Rumble also. There you go. And, wow. Wow. I have no idea what's going on here. It just glitched out on me like a mug. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna have to do some editing at the end post to make sure that anyone who tries to watch this can watch it. This is crazy. Is it working on Rumble? Looks like it. And it's working on YouTube. All right, there we go. So I don't even remember what I was talking about. Thanks, Ty Alexander, for the super chat or whatever on Rumble. Or no, on Streamlabs. Says, this thing with Sarah Silverman is the same thing I said about Ethan Klein. They cultivate this audience. They raise this beast. They leashed it to their enemies, or leashed it to turn on their enemies. Now that the beast has slipped its chain, it is biting their hand. You reap what you sow. And yeah. Sarah Silverman and Amy Schumer and who dare leave the narrative that they're supposed to have, get bit by the hand that feeds them. So anyway, and Cher can fuck off. Cher can bite it. Please vote for Donald Trump so Cher will leave the country. Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to skip. DJ Envy, apparently, from the Breakfast Club, is in trouble, and the feds raided the studios, and there's something going on there. That's trending also, but I'm not going to get into it because, well, just because. We were talking about Howard Stern's bomb. How did that happen? No, I know we were talking about Cher. So anyway, but I do have to touch on this one. Well, no, I'm not going to touch this at all, but Maxim is trending. Remember Maxim magazine? Maxim, they're known for putting hot chicks on the cover and whatever, and something's happened at Maxim magazine though, and I mean something terrible has happened, because Maxim magazine apparently has a list of the, what do they say, the 100 hottest women in the world. Okay, according to Maxim magazine in Australia. Okay, C. Thomas, if you're back in Australia, and they have named this person as the hottest women in the world. The hottest women in the world. This lovely young lady. Oh my God, what is that? They've named this as one of the most attractive women in the world. Now, let's see. Number 92 of the top 100 hottest women in the world, according to Maxim magazine in Australia, is this woman. How did we get to a point where companies, institutions, publications can do this with no fear of backlash? This person was this person, and now it's this person, and named one of the most attractive list of hottest 100 women? How? Why? Why do they feel the need to do this? This is embarrassing. There are 3.95 billion women on the planet. Maxim Australia says this man is more attractive than all of them, or at least the 97 of them, as one of the 100 most beautiful women in the world. Now, who agrees with this? Whose idea was this? Chicken dance. Why is that in there? I don't know. Okay. So, anyway, where do we draw the line? Here it is. Where do we draw the line between a principled commitment to free expression and an equally principled belief in the Spider-Man maxim that, okay, that's something else. A bloke in a dress beat Penny Wong, Lydia Thorpe, Anastasia Palashuk for Maxim 2023 most successful and most beautiful women in entertainment and pop. Our world has gone fucking insane. All right. Now, let's see. I really want to get to the main topic. Oh, good. I'm at the main topic now. So, we've had a little issue with corporate media, and I'll finish with this because this is, I want to talk about the media propaganda that has been bought hook, line, and sinker by the world media, not just, and I would say just the New York Times, but it's not just the New York Times. Apparently, the Hamas has decided to make this a propaganda war. Now, look, I'm going to say it again. At least it's in the title, but all wars are propaganda wars, okay? Everyone's jockeying for position on what is true and what is not. But it just seems like there's this whole custom of taqiyya, if you know what I'm talking about, TAQQIA or something like that, YA, where it's, if you're doing it, if you're telling a falsehood for a cause, it's okay. All right. And so these were the headlines from the New York Times. Now I'm going to show you these headlines because they have changed. Okay. And I'm going to show you in fact, this little thing has a progression of the headlines where it's still wrong. And the New York Times put out this headline and then quietly changed it without any notification that they changed the headline. It just kept changing online. It started out as Israel strikes and kills hundreds in hospital, Palestinians say. Okay. Then they change it to, now notice, Israeli strike kills hundreds in the hospital. Then they changed it quietly to at least 500 dead in strike on Gaza hospital, Palestinians say. Now, notice they took out Israeli strike because they were getting more information and maybe, and then all of a sudden they change it to at least 500 dead in blast at Gaza hospital. Okay. Palestinians say. Now, why did they have this quiet change of headlines? And you may have already heard the story, but I'm still going to tell you my version of it. Because it goes from Israeli strike kills hundreds in hospital. Notice the in, that's a change. At least 500 dead in strike on Gaza hospital. So there still sounds like someone attacked the hospital, right? And then the last one is at least 500 dead in blast, no longer a strike, at Gaza hospital, Palestinians say. Now, why, pray tell, would you have this succession of changing headlines? Well, maybe because there was no strike on the hospital. The missile that struck in the parking lot of the hospital, not the hospital itself, but struck the parking lot of the hospital, well, that missile came from Hamas or one of the groups that were trying to send a rocket over into Israel. Okay, so I want to go through this story in the Federalist regarding this because it's fascinating. Thing is, all those headlines are technically true. Those are all things Palestinians said. Yes, the Palestinians said that, and the world media ate it up and caused violence and protest around embassies, Israeli and American embassies around the world because of this false thing that, they killed 500 people at a hospital. How dare the Israelis shoot at a hospital? So anyway, there was no evidence of an Israeli airstrike on a Gaza hospital, but that didn't stop the corrupt left-wing media from repeating Hamas's claims. It all happened rather quickly on Tuesday. In a matter of minutes, not hours, there was an explosion at a hospital in Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry immediately and incredibly claimed that some 500 people were killed and that the blast was caused by an Israeli missile. And every media outlet, major media outlets, took Hamas's officials at their word and ran with that headline despite the lack of any corroborating evidence. As Jake Tapper would say, without evidence. Now, before changing the headline twice, the New York Times declared, Israeli strike kills hundreds in hospital, Palestinians say. The Wall Street Journal also called it a strike without any evidence beyond the say-so of a terrorist regime that 10 days earlier had butchered more than 1,000 civilians and raping women and decapitating babies. Nearly every news media organization did something similar. Now, by nightfall in the Middle East, angry mobs assaulted the embassies and military bases of Israel, the United States, and other Western powers. The streets of Baghdad, Istanbul, Beirut, Amman, Doha, Tehran, Cairo, Rabat, and even some European cities like Berlin and Barcelona were filled with hordes of enraged Hamas sympathizers who believed, and now will always believe, as evidenced by the protest in Washington, D.C. yesterday, that Israel struck the hospital. The fake news cycle even derailed President Biden's trip to the region. Jordan abruptly canceled a planned summit with the United States, Egypt, and Palestinian leaders while Biden was en route. It also placed American lives in real danger. Now, by Wednesday morning, it was clear that nothing the media initially reported was true. Israel did not fire a missile at the hospital, and hundreds of people were not killed. Instead, it appears that a Palestinian rocket misfired and landed in the parking lot of the hospital complex. In the light of day, video footage of the site showed no impact crater consistent with an airstrike, and most of the nearby hospital buildings were completely intact. So what happened here? This was an info op, a deliberate campaign to alter the narrative of the Israeli-Hamas war and inflame the Muslim world. Perhaps 1 billion people or more are now convinced beyond all doubt that Israel bombed a hospital and killed hundreds of Palestinian civilians. And they're not taking it back. In fact, Rashida Taliban yesterday at the rally in Washington, D.C., after the fact that it was known that this was not an Israeli airstrike, still repeated the claim that the Israelis bombed a hospital, and she cried in front of the audience. Okay, now what we've seen this kind of op before many times. In every case, it's designed to serve the domestic interests of the progressive left. In this case, the purpose was to contain Israel's response to last week's horrific Hamas attack on innocent civilians. That, by the way, is the actual purpose of Biden's trip to the Middle East, where he'll be asking tough questions as a friend of Israel, according to the administration. Translation: Israel should stand down. The credible threat of an unconstrained mob violence across the Middle East directed at Western targets will do much to advance this goal. Indeed, it already has. So we saw a similar media info op in the Ukraine-Russia war last November when a missile strike struck a grain silo in Poland, killing 2 civilians. The missile strike was immediately blamed on Russia, stoking outrage across the West and bolstering calls for more military assistance to Ukraine. But it wasn't until last month that Polish experts finally confirmed that the missile was Ukrainian, not Russian. The same thing happens here in America. During Black Lives Matter riots in the summer of 2020, hysteria and outrage preceded the collection of facts or the verification of claims. And in episode after episode that summer, we saw law enforcement officers, including black officers, use justified force in the line of duty, often amid chaotic and violent rioting. Such force was then instantly used as a pretext for more rioting. Then, as now, it didn't matter what the facts were, and no one cared or even noticed when they were corrected. The misreporting by then had served its purpose of providing cover for the fresh cycle of street violence and rioting. Now, it's important to understand that these media info ops only happen on issues where reporting bias has served the domestic political priorities of the left. From Ukraine to Gaza to the streets of American cities, the reporting bias works in the same direction and serves the same set of interests. The connections and affinity between BLM activists and the pro-Palestinian crowd in the U.S. should be fairly obvious by now, and we should understand that these media ops in that light. Now, in this case, the stakes of such ops are rather high. Instead of mere outrage on social media or even mere riots in the streets, corporate media misreporting about the hospital fueled violent mobs across the entire Middle East. And the Israeli-Hamas conflict now appears to be on the brink of triggering a wider regional war. For those on the right, it's long past time to understand and admit that what corporate media are and how they operate. These outlets are not interested in reporting on the news of what actually happened or in shedding light on real events, and certainly not in exposing the truth and informing the public. No, they have a purpose. By repeating Hamas propaganda, they are effectively waging war against Israel. But they are doing so as part of a larger information war to advance their agenda in the United States. If you think there will be a reckoning or any accountability for the lies they spread or the damage they've done, think again. There never has been, and there won't be this time either. So that's the editorial of that. And I got to tell you, and there's a couple other articles in Behind the Black, the utterly bankrupt mainstream press. Also, the hospital fiasco offers a vivid example of journalism's rot. There's another article about this, just showing how the fact that the disinformation is coming from inside the house. 500 dead was almost impossible. Yeah, unless there were a lot of people leaving from a big convention in the parking lot of the hospital. But yeah. It's just insane. And, there's, and if you want another look at it, here in Red State, shocking new evidence shows massive Hamas and media disinformation campaign on bombed hospital. As the sun rose over Gaza, fresh evidence of exactly what happened at the Ali Baptist Hospital has emerged and exposed perhaps the worst wartime disinformation campaign in modern history. Before we get there, though, it's important to understand the timeline. The hospital was first reported to have been struck by the Gaza Health Ministry, controlled by Hamas, at 7:20 p.m. All the times in this article are going to be local. On Tuesday evening, almost immediately, claims of carnage, leveled buildings, at least 500 dead from, quote, an Israeli bombing, end quote, began to inundate the world press, including American outlets like the New York Times, ABC News, and CNN. And here's an example. Right here is ABC News, and again, on all these places. Yes, it was immediately clear that things weren't adding up. In the initial write-up, this person noted several bits of information that would lead one to believe it was actually a rocket fired from Gaza that misfired and fell short. Shortly after publishing that piece, video evidence emerged, and it wasn't from the Israelis. Rather, it was a live broadcast that occurred on Al Jazeera, and it included a timestamp on the chyron, i.e. no one could claim it was doctored. What the pro-Hamas network inadvertently showed was that at 6:59 p.m., a rocket was fired from Gaza. It exploded midair and then fell down into the hospital grounds. So this rocket didn't even explode on the ground. It exploded midair and fell to the ground. So here's their Al Jazeera. We'll show you the video here. Give me a moment. Gaza missile was aimed at Israel, killing its own people. Here's the first clip. It should show up in a second. Hopefully I'm not buffering. So there it is. There's the missile. You can see that little white dot there. There it explodes. And there it exploded and it fell to the ground. That was a missile from there and landing. Oh my goodness, landing right there. So part of it blew up in there. Yeah, that did not come from Israel. All right. Then there's a second video here. Let's see this one. I'm not sure what that's showing. But anyway, the Al Jazeera had the footage of accidentally showed the footage of the missile. So anyway, early Wednesday morning, more proof had emerged, including an intercepted conversation between jihadists admitting that a rocket had misfired near the hospital and caused the damage. So if you have, here it is. I'll translate because it says, I'm telling you, this is the first time that we see a missile like that firing. And so that's why we're saying it belongs to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. What? They're saying it belongs to Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It's from us. It looks like it. Who says this? They're saying it's shrapnel from the missile, local shrapnel, and not like Israeli shrapnel. What are you saying? Is silence? God bless us, it couldn't have been found another place to explode. Never mind, yes, they shot it from a cemetery behind the hospital. What? It shot from the cemetery behind Alma's hospital. It misfired and fell on them. There's a cemetery behind it? Yes, Alma Amadi is exactly in the compound. Where is it when you enter the compound? You first enter the compound, you don't go to the city. It's on the right side of Alma Ahmad Hospital. Ah, yes, I know it. So they... This is some Keystone Cop shit. Holy shit. All of that would have been conclusive enough, but now that there is daylight in the area, what we are seeing at the hospital is shocking. Update on the chapel at the Ali, hospital in Gaza. The building lost several of its stained glass windows in the explosion, but otherwise appears intact. Full footage from TASS. No impact craters. Interior spaces appear to be intact. Injuries from flying glass appear to have occurred. Again, we now have video of the scene showing the explosion is from the parking lot and the buildings are intact. There is no crater, no building demolished. This is inconsistent with the type of bomb many were suggesting yesterday. Drone footage from before and after shows the same as above, also inconsistent with an airstrike. So as you can see, the hospital itself was not even hit or damaged aside from some broken windows. Rather, the rocket fell short into the parking lot, burning some cars. There's no impact crater consistent with high explosive bomb from the IAF. Instead, essentially all the damage appears to have been from a fire caused by an unspent rocket fuel. Further, the idea that 500 people were killed appears to be completely false. At most, it may have been a few dozen people, and that's assuming the parking lot even had a large number of people in it. As pointed out in the initial reporting, it would have been impossible for Hamas to recover and count 500 bodies from a supposedly still burning hospital within the span of an hour. That never made sense. This was a targeted disinformation campaign that ran its way around the globe, parroted by the largest news outlets, causing violence in multiple countries. The violence is still ongoing, with Western embassies and consulates under attack in Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, and Jordan, among others. It was all based on a lie told by a terrorist organization. This wasn't a small fudging of the situation either. Hamas completely made up a story about a hospital being leveled by an IAF bombing. The press reported on it uncritically for hours, with some claiming people were being pulled from the rubble. Then they made up the story about 500 people being dead. The press also repeated those numbers with zero verification. And where's the accountability? Who's going to lose their job over this? Will there be apologies issued from these news organizations that claim the utmost credibility? Don't hold your breath, but let this be another lesson that you should never blindly believe the mainstream press, especially when there are telltale signs that things aren't adding up. So, 2 articles. There's a couple more. I'm not going to go through them because it's the same information. Amazing. Wait a minute. Weird Al Qaeda or weird Al Jazeera? I don't know. So, unbelievable. Well, no, actually, it's totally believable. Totally believable that the propaganda war or propaganda during war sometimes catches us off guard, and that's really bad. That's really, really bad. So I'm gonna call it a day, guys. Thanks for the rest of you who retweeted part 2. Also looks like, I'm not sure here. Oh no, that's the old one. Anyway, thanks for retweeting the show. Thanks for your patience. I don't know how this happens sometimes, but it does. And I'm glad the new stream has an excellent connection and didn't poop out on me. I want you all to have a wonderful day. Please, I'll drop the links in both versions of the stream just to make it easier if you go back and watch these, or you're watching this after the fact and you want to see the articles that we produced here. They'll all be in the links in the show. I'll drop them in the chat too. Hello, Evan S., by the way, and Unacceptable Views, and Cannibalistic Wizard, and all of those who showed up for the second half of the stream. All right, I got to go. It's that time. Thank you, everybody. My name's P. Dog Knight, and I am out of here. Bye-bye. Hey, this is P-Dog Night, and thanks for watching today on the P-Dog Night channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterwards so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all the supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through Streamlabs, YouTube, Venmo, and Cash App, which are all linked in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm P-Dog Night, and I'm out of here.